Chapter 22 Mimi Takes Charge. And this is a very special chapter indeed. Given half a chance, I think I might have stayed on the sofa bed for the rest of my life. But the next morning, I woke up to the noise of someone in the kitchen. My hope was short lived. It was Mimi, wearing the frilliest apron I have ever seen, taking biscuits out of the oven. "Are you up?" she said. "It's about time, as you see. Breakfast is ready." Indeed, the dining room table was laid with a cloth. There were fresh bagels, with cream cheese and lox and tomatoes and onion, a bowl of creme fraiche, some jam, and of course, the biscuits Mimi brought with her. My finest teapot, the one I used for shadowing me, was in the middle of the table. I ran my finger around the rim. I always I always admired that, Mimi said. I even thought once or twice it might be worth breaking the rules to have the chance to drink from it, but it all happened in good time. Sit down, dear. Mimi had always eaten with great intensity. That hadn't changed. We didn't talk until she was finished. "So," she said, "what are you going to do today? A movie? Shopping? Of course, we'll have lunch. What suits you?" I shook my head. I don't want to go out. "Of course, you don't want to go out," she said, mimicking my exact tone of voice. "My rascal of a brother, what has you are upset? But you've had a whole day to fear bad about that. It's time for something else. Maybe a museum?" We went to the Museum of Modern Art. They had the very best. Oh, they have the very best cafe, Mimi said. I was digging for my membership card to get us around the line outside when the guard at the door waved us in. "Surely," he said with a little bow. "It's wonderful to see you again." "And you, Marco, so tell me, what should I see today?" "Everyone is looking at the Ansel Adams," he said. "Would you like a guide?" She waved as we walked past. "I think we'll just browse." "Mimi," I whispered as we made for the central staircase. "He thinks you're—" "Of course he does, dear. I look exactly like her." "But shouldn't you, well, explain that you're not?" She stopped and stared at me, as if I had grown a purple wart on my nose. "Why would I want that?" She pinched my cheek. "I forgot how annoyingly honest you are, Alice. Come along." I went. We browsed 3 floors in less than 2 hours. Mimi seemed to have developed quite an interest in art. I was still too dazed to pay too much attention to what I was seeing. Except, of course, I noticed that in any room with patrons older than 50 or 55, there was a quiet stir as they realized that a famous actress, or a woman they thought was a famous actress, was among them. Mimi smiled and waved to the few who stared blatantly. Long before my stomach signaled hunger, Mimi declared it was time for lunch. She was tired of the museum and said, "We should do something special to cheer you up. Let's go to Aqua. They have the best tuna pockets in the town." Her car. Did I say she had a limousine and a handsome young man named Pedro to drive it? Okay, not gonna even touch that. Seemed to have anticipated her decision. It was waiting at the sidewalk, and soon we were downtown. The young woman who was managing the desk didn't recognize Mimi and almost turned us away before the manager pushed her aside. "Of course you can have a table for you," he said, taking her arm. "Perhaps over there in the corner, where you and your friend can have a quiet conversation." Mimi ordered martinis for two. God knows what was in them, but they were a pink when they went that there. But they were a pink that went nicely with her hair. Seems like a bizarre sentence. Everyone seems to everyone seems to know you, I said. Have you spent a lot of time in San Francisco? "Oh, yes," she said. "You see, I really love California.
Can't imagine living anywhere else. But my presence in Los Angeles could be a bit awkward.
Awkward? It seemed to me that her presence anywhere, looking the way she did, could turn out to be awkward.
Where,
She went on,
if the two of you showed up at the same place, people would start to ask questions.
if you're trying to keep your appearances a secret from her, trotting all over San Francisco pretending to be her might not be the best idea.
But I'm not trying to keep it a secret.
Mimi looked a bit offended.
I may not take honesty to a ridiculous extreme, but I do have principle.
I studied my menu for a bit, thinking I would let it go. But then a waiter came over with a napkin and asked, Miss M, if she would mind. He offered a pen, and I saw her scrawl a name that was clearly not her own. Really, Mimi? I said. Aren't you worried about getting caught? What will you do when the real Miss M finds out about you? Why wouldn't she just say the name? That bothers me. Just say the fucking name of the celebrity. We all know who you're fucking talking about. God damn it. A beaming smile lit her face, and she patted my cheek again.
Sure, that's what you're worried about, dear. You're such a lovely person.
Her eyes returned to her menu.
She already knows, so why would I worry about being caught?
She knows? I said, loud enough to draw a fair amount of attention.
Manners now,
She said, patting my hand. I could see that she was delighting in my confusion.
Sherry and I talked this all over quite some time ago. When did my cat self die? I forget.
1995, I reminded her.
That's right. I saw Sherry not too long after that.
I pushed my menu aside, took hers, and put it away too. How did you manage this? Just turn up at the door and ask the butler if she was in? Mimi shook her head.
On this plane of existence, one doesn't have to turn up at the door and ask the butler. I know where she was, and I went there.
You mean you showed up in her room?
Of course. She was a little surprised to see me, but soon she understood.
Understood what? Mimi retrieved her menu.
I'm hungry. We'll eat, and then I'll tell you everything.
I put my hand over the menu. Now, I said.
I explained my situation to her. I needed a human image, and of course, I couldn't made one up. So I liked the way she looked. Shirley, of course, was quite touched by choosing her. She has no problem with sharing her appearance with me.
She believed you? Mimi smiled.
She's quite an advanced soul to the living in a human form. Now may I eat?
We ate. And when we saw a movie, and then we saw a movie, and then we had dinner. By the time Pedro stopped in front of my apartment, I was feeling considerably more relaxed than I had 24 hours earlier. I had a good time, I told her. Hearing myself, I added, It's not that I don't miss Shadow.
Of course, you miss him, she said. But he wanted us to have a good time. I'll see you tomorrow.
And she did. We went shopping. She said she'd never liked my clothes, and she bought me some that she thought were more suitable. We took long walks in the park and by the ocean, and of course, we ate. She was the perfect companion for this time in my life. She acknowledged my sadness, but didn't fuss over me. Best of all, she didn't preach. Unlike my friend Sally, who stopped by one morning before Mimi came for me. Goddamn Sally, you son of a bitch. You look wonderful, Alice, she said, as though that had never happened before. Where did you get that sweater? My friend picked it out for me. Then you've been going out? What a relief. What did you think I was doing? We didn't know. You never answer your phone. You don't return our calls. We've been terribly worried, she said. Amelia and David and me. That dinner party was the craziest thing since the tea party your namesake threw in Wonderland. I'm sorry you worried, I said, but I wasn't. I've been busy. She cocked her head, an implied question. Going here and there, I said. Getting on with my life would be your term for it. Sam's gone? Oh, yes, and Shadow, too. David will be happy to hear that. I paused. They were the same person, you know. There was never a Sam. He was always Shadow. Your cat. She looked at me with what I quickly realized was a professional gaze. You think he was turning himself into a man and back? Is it so impossible to believe? You were here at the dinner party. Shadow the man walked into the guest room, and Shadow the cat came running out and attacked David. The cat ran into. This is going to end with her seeing him transform. That's how this is going to end. All right. The cat ran into our bedroom, and the man came out and said goodnight. You saw it with your own eyes. Sally sat beside me, taking my hand in a gesture that I'm sure she meant to convey a loving concern. I suppose I can see how you might have interpreted it that way. No, I said, getting to my feet. It's not how I interpreted it. It's how it was. And I don't need you holding my hand. Believe me. Believing me would be nicer. But I don't think you're able to do that. I heard the horn on Mimi's limousine, and I was relieved she hadn't just come upstairs. God only knows what Sally would have made out of it. I'm afraid I have to go now. At the gate, Sally turned to me again, with a look of gravest concern. We all love you, Alice. Just call if you need anything. As it turned out, though, it was Mimi who provided just what I needed. A week or two had gone by, and I had returned to some of my old rounds, particularly the literacy work. I was seeing less of Mimi, so I was particularly happy one morning when I saw her coming out of the park. A moment later, there was a knock at my door, and then I heard her coming up the stairs. Mimi always let herself in. I didn't need to know how, but I appreciated her knocking first. I was just getting lunch together, I said. Will you join me?
Of course, she said. But we may need to grab an extra dish.
She was standing in an odd way, almost hugging herself. Then I heard the smallest bleat. Mimi pulled one arm away from her chest and reached inside her sweater. A small, mostly black cat wriggled out of her grasp and plopped onto the floor. Mimi, what have you done? You might have thought the cat would be frightened, being suddenly hijacked to a new environment. But the creature had great aplomb. First, it studied the room, then it studied me. It hopped onto the windowsill, and looked out for a long moment. Then it returned to the floor, strolling over to me, rubbed against my leg, and sauntered into the kitchen. How does a cat saunter? I think she's.
I think she's perfect for you.
I don't know, Mimi, but she was calling from the kitchen. I found a package of Shadow's food in the back of his cupboard and put it down with some fresh water. I used my own dishes, not Shadow's. I'm not sure I want a cat, but she's cute, I said.
You'll have to give her a name,
Mimi was saying.
We can talk about it after lunch.
As I've indicated, Mimi ate with an intensity that did not permit conversation. I wasn't sure what to say to the silence. I wasn't sure what to say, so the silence was a blessing. God, that was difficult. By the time lunch was over, she had settled herself over the windowsill of the dining room, by the dining room table, where she was dozing. Where did you get her?
In the park, there's a very large clan of cats living there. Shadow told me about them.
I nodded, thinking again of the day I'd seen his cat self running across the walk, stained in something else's blood. He thought this little one would be particularly good. Oh, that's Mimi.
He thought that the little one would be particularly good for you, companion for you. I would have brought her right away, but I didn't think you were ready.
And you think I'm ready now? Mimi reached over, lifted the sleepy cat, and dropped her onto my lap, where she curled up into a ball and slept. She must be an outdoor cat, I said. Shadow told me that outdoor cats can never be indoor cats, and vice versa.
Shadow told you many things.
Mimi said, with a bit of tartness.
Too many.
God, is Mimi gonna try and kill Alice? Crisscross. The question had been on my mind for days, but now it came to my lips. What did he do, Mimi? What did he do that was so wrong? Mimi shook her head.
He broke the rules, several of them. Among others, he forgot that you are human. He was in love, and cats aren't accustomed to that emotion. It must be pretty powerful.
Whose rules did he break? Her eyes narrowed.
Would you have me break them too?
I don't want to make trouble for you.
Yes, you made enough trouble for him, as it is.
I stroked the new cat. Where did he go? Will he come back?
He went to make peace. There was an easy way to do it, but then he wouldn't have been able to come back to you, so he chose the more dangerous way. He will come back if he can.
We sat for a while. This cat, I said. Will she always be a cat? Mimi nodded.
She's only in her third life.
I don't know. I think I'll call her Delilah, I said. It'll be good to have a cat again. Oh man. Oh man. Oh, I'm so stoked.